Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Newington Town Council's regular meeting of Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. If you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. If you would do the roll call, please, Susan.
Here.
Here.
Councilor Camillo. Councilor Donahue.
Here.
Councilor Mankey.
Here.
Councilor Nagel.
Here.
Councilor Page.
Here.
Councilor Retta.
Here.
Mayor Del Muno.
Here. Thank you. Next item this evening is the approval of the agenda. Councilor Mankey.
I would move we approve the agenda as presented. Second.
Seconded by Councilor Page. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Councilor Camillo absent. Next item this evening is awards and proclamations. And we have the, well, I would say, normally say pleasure, but it's really kind of a sad moment, I think, also, the retirement of our SRO and Master Police Officer, Jeff Wagner. What I'll do is I'll read the proclamation in, and then I'll have you come up at the end. I'll come around and we'll present you with it, okay? All right. Proclamation. Whereas on April 25th, 2005, Jeffrey Wagner was hired as a police officer for the town of Newington, and whereas Officer Jeffrey Wagner was appointed K-9 handler on March 1st, 2006, and was appointed to the emergency response team in March 2006 and January 2022. And whereas in December 2007 and again in May 2011, Officer Jeffrey Wagner received the Excellence in Policing Award. And whereas on February 20th, 2009, Officer Jeffrey Wagner was appointed Field Training Officer. And whereas Officer Jeffrey Wagner received the Arrest Investigation of the Month in July 2009 and Arrest of the Month in December 2012. And whereas Officer Jeffrey Wagner received a Letter of Commendation in December 2018. And whereas on March 31st, 2019, Officer Jeffrey Wagner was promoted to Master Police Officer and received a Written Commendation Award on May 21st, 2019. And whereas Master Police Officer Jeffrey Wagner received a life-saving citation on May 21st, 2019. And whereas in May 2021, Master Police Officer Jeffrey Wagner was appointed as the School Resource Officer. And whereas Master Police Officer Jeffrey Wagner has received commendation letters from surrounding police departments, including New London, New Britain, Simsbury, Vernon, Wethersfield, and the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation. And whereas Master Police Officer Jeffrey Wagner received various letters and emails of appreciation from residents and citizens while in the service of the town of Newington. And whereas after over 18 years of service, Master Police Officer Jeffrey Wagner will be retiring from the Newington Police Department on June 13th, 2023. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby recognizes and extends its sincere appreciation to Master Police Officer Jeffrey Wagner for his professional service and dedication to the town, and wishes him the best in his retirement, dated in Newington, Connecticut, this 13th day of June, 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Mankey. I'll have council discussion. Deputy Mayor Bedrejko.
Okay, Master Police Officer Jeffrey Wagner. Want to thank you for your service to and the protection that you provided to the town of Newington for a little bit more than 18 years. I know you assisted many residents throughout your career, and your efforts and professionalism were recognized not only by the residents of Newington, but by other departments, by the number of letters of commendation you received, by the number of appreciation that letters that you received from the citizens here in Newington. So as much as we miss you, I know you're going on to a new and exciting career, a new phase of your life, and thank you for your service, and stay in touch.
All right, Councilor Page.
Thanks, Mayor.
Officer, I just want to thank you very much for all your service, keeping us safe and watching out for us night and day. And thank you to your family. I can't imagine what it's like to be worrying night and day for your safety as you keep us safe. So thank you. We wish you nothing but the best.
Counselor Mankey?
I just also add my congratulations. I guess this is the official day of retirement today, right? Which is pretty cool. You should be out celebrating after this because I think that's an accomplishment. But I want to thank you for keeping us safe, as everyone else said, and really caring about our community. The fact that there's so many officers standing behind you, I think, speaks to your character and the difference you made in our police department and what you've done for our community. So I just would thank you for your service and wish you all the best on retirement.
Counselor Rada?
Yes, again, just adding my congratulations and many thanks to you. All of your years, excuse me, of service, and it's because of you and your brothers and sisters who keep us safe, keep our town safe, and make it the place that we love to live in. So thank you very much.
Counselor Donahue?
Just ditto. Thank you for your service, 18 years. Amazing. Enjoy the next phase you're going into, and everybody said stay in touch.
Counselor Anist?
Thank you. Thank you for your 18 years of service protecting the residents of our town. And I'm sure the students are going to miss you greatly as well. And I want to thank your wife and your son for giving us your dad and your husband to help protect our town. I know it's not easy being home while your spouse is out there on the streets. So congratulations and enjoy your retirement and your next chapter of your life.
Counselor Nagel?
I'd like to extend my thanks also to Officer Wagner for your years of service, ranging from all different areas of the police department. See what happens when you start as a K9 handler. Being a dog lover myself, that it starts there, and to see how you've flourished into other areas in the police department and have given in many different ways to the community of Newington, and indeed have received commendations from many different departments in different towns. And enjoy your retirement, what you need to do, what you wish to do in the future, and congratulations again. You'll be missed.
I would just offer my sincere congratulations. I think over the years, I've gotten to see you in action a few times, and I've had the pleasure of I consider it working with you, and also calling you a friend. And I greatly appreciate the service that you've given to the town. You know, when there's that many whereases, we know you've done a few things. And to see all the officers behind you, someone else said that, but that speaks volumes about what you mean to our department and our community. And I wish you well in all that you choose to do next, because I'm sure that there's plenty more left for you to do. I'm going to come around and, yes, we do have to vote on it. I do this all the time. Make it official. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Counselor Camillo absent. I have to say that as a rule.
Sorry. Thank you so
Congratulations.
much.
Wish you the best, the very best.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, do you want to say anything? You should give you a chance.
I can say something.
Come on up. Oh, you can say what you want. It's up to you.
Awesome.
Exactly.
I just want to thank everybody for doing this for me. It's very nice. And all those things I did throughout my career is because I live in this town. I care about this town, right? I came to this town. I worked in Plainville for 3 years and 4 months before I came here. This is my number one choice. I told my brothers, they're 2 cops. This is where I want to work. And I took the test a few more times to get here, but I finally got hired in 2005. I made it, right? This PD in the state was known for the best PD in the state, besides state police. So everybody said Newington PD was the best PD, and it was. And all these guys sacrifice their time. They get ordered in 4, 5, 6 times a day or a week, and they miss from their family, but they still give it all. And even on our last SWAT call out when we went to Hoffman's, I'm retiring in 2 weeks. I still responded to that SWAT call out. I still went to the front of the stack. And not one of these guys, we all knew that person, we didn't know who got out of there. He might have been there for 4 hours loading ammo and guns, right? But all these guys responded. They're brave. They just went in, they did their job, and that's something to be proud of. And we need to have the best PD in this state again. And that, I'm not a union guy, but we need to have benefits where other officers are getting taken from this PD. And you're losing really good talent because of something that might cost the town a little bit, but in the end, it's gonna benefit us because we're not sending someone to the academy for 6 months, 14 weeks FTO and invest all this money and then they end up leaving.
Right.
So for investment as a citizen of the town now, I can speak my mind a little more, is I see the effort and the professionalism of my brothers and sisters every day. And they give a lot, so that day, that's why I call out, everybody went without question.
Mhm.
No one showed, they could be scared inside, but they didn't show it. Right. And I've seen it a million times. I've seen it when me, also Malfi, some of us, when a 1-month-old baby died. And we respond as fast as safely we can get there. And we did CPR and then the mom's in the background crying and save my baby. So we see 800 critical incidents in our lifetime over 20 years of law enforcement. Normal citizen sees 2. So I had someone say to me like, oh, I wish I could retire at, 48. And I'm like, you know how much we've been through?
Yeah.
Right.
We've been through a lot. So like everybody, it's easy to say that when you retire, like at 48, these guys they give everything on the street. And they go out and they sleep at night and have bad dreams and their relationships get ruined. So they deserve what they get. That's all. I'm not crying.
You're not out yet.
Been there, done that? No.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate all of you coming too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Ready?
Go eat.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Go out to dinner someplace.
That was a good one. Okay. Next item this evening is presentations, and we have this evening the introduction of our new town engineer. I'm going to let you do the honors.
I know, we've been doing a lot of these department head things lately,
We
which
have.
it's a good thing. And I'm very excited to introduce Chris. Come on up, Chris. Chris comes to us from the private sector. He's done a whole lot of work, as you can see from the memorandum here. I'm going to let him speak to what he's done over the time and even the short time he's been with us already. Because I've thrown a lot at him.
What a tough act to follow, huh?
I know.
I don't know.
Don't worry, I do that all the time with Councilor Draco. I follow her all the time and forget it, you can't do it.
So as you've seen from my bio, I'm not new at this. I've been around a while. Municipal engineering, private practice engineering, it all melts together. And it just, at the end, makes for, I like to think it is a well-rounded education, not just school, but work experience, different projects of all kinds. And I see a lot of that going on here in Newington. We have 3333 Berlin Turnpike going on, all that stuff out on Cedar. And with a little bit of luck, we'll get through all that without too much aggravation. But that said, construction's a dirty business and it's a nice product when it's done. But in the meanwhile, the calls and letters keep on coming. I guess that's all I've got to say. Anything for me?
Just welcome. We're very glad to have you on board and, your resume, so to speak. We're really thrilled to see all of your experience and we welcome that here. We really need your help with, as you mentioned, all these projects that we have going on, as well as many more planned projects. Many things in the hopper.
And I are working on grants as we speak.
Wonderful,
Excellent.
wonderful. Well, welcome. Any other counselors?
Welcome,
Welcome. All right.
I will say the town planner was very excited to have him on
I
board.
bet.
He was waiting day by day.
At the door, waiting for him to come home, yeah.
Waiting for you as you walked in.
Yeah.
My previous coworker had a meeting with him the day before I left CJM to come here. And the question in the office is, should I attend this with you? And the decision was made that Kevin should go by himself. And Paul brought it up almost immediately. When does he start?
Yep, yep,
My engineer.
yep.
In addition to the newer projects that, you mentioned, we've got some serious infrastructure issues that are, old and, Newington's 150 years old and, we've got, roads and sewers and whatever. So, you're gonna see the whole gamut.
Sometimes from inside the pipe, as we say.
I like the fact that you have both, private experience as well as municipal.
It helps a lot with the developers.
Exactly.
Being on their side of the table, understanding where they're coming from and what their concerns are and how they're treated. Having dealt with many other municipalities and their respective staffs, how they treat me in that role, the better ones are how I'd like to treat our developers in my new role.
Well, I love hearing that.
Yeah, that's important.
And you served in the military, so that's gonna prepare you for some hard work here, sir.
Hard work, yes, but some of those experiences I would not like to relate here.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Great. Welcome
well,
aboard.
welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next item this evening is public participation. Any member of the public is welcome to come forward to the microphone if you'd like to speak. We do have a 3-minute time limit. There's a bar across the bottom of the screen, or there's a clock on the table that helps keep track of that. And we just ask that you state your name and address for the record. And then if we have anybody online, sometimes we'll just take turns between who's in the room and who's online. But anyone that's in the room that would like to come forward, please feel free. Excuse me.
Claire Fravel, 188 Rocket Street. Thank you for allowing me to comment. I forwarded an email yesterday with questions regarding item 12E, the sale of 21 Timothy Street, as I am an abutting property owner. And I request that these questions be answered before moving forward with this process. And the questions regard sufficient notification to abutting property owners, not only about this item, but also about the change from James Street extension to 21 Timothy Street. We found out in 2020 because a realtor was walking through our yard, and then we made some inquiries, and we wrote to the town manager then about asking for ample notice if there was anything proposed for either of the parcels that are part of the situation. Other questions are, how did this situation even come to be? How is it that the 187 East Robbins was allowed to be sold as separate lots with the rear lot having no access to the street? It's been advertised as having 18 feet of access to East Robbins, and now it seems like it doesn't have access. So I'd like to know what's the documented chain of events that brought us here. And I'd also like to know if there was a title search done on the James Street extension or 21 Timothy Street to document that the town has ownership and is able to sell. And there's other questions in the email. As an abutting property owner, I'm opposed to the sale. I don't think our neighborhood will benefit from another structure, driveway, vehicles, etc. There is a benefit to open space or green space in neighborhoods. It's a great neighborhood and we have really good neighbors, but we don't want to live on top of each other. I've seen houses go up in Newington in spaces that I could hardly believe that a house could go up, and where people had a little space, now they're sort of packed like sardines. My mother-in-law is here tonight, and her property also abuts most of the lot, and she and my father-in-law maintained James Street extension since 1964. And since we bought our home, my husband helps with the mowing, the snow shoveling, the pruning, the forsythias, and the weed whacking. The town doesn't maintain that property. And my mother-in-law still does a lot. I mean, she can run circles around, I know she can run circles around me and probably most of us here. I don't think it's right for her or any of us that live next to this parcel be forced into a sale in order to avoid a permanent disturbance that will impact our quality of life and our property values. And this isn't just about us as property owners or our neighborhood, but other residents in town who might be in a similar situation. So ultimately, I ask that these questions be answered and documented before we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no one online with their hand up right now, so if anybody else would like to come up, you're welcome to.
Dennis Ray, 188 Rocket Street. Again, addressing the new business 12B, do have concerns about title searches, and I have a strong remembrance of that parcel of not, which is now 21 Timothy Street, being 50, 60 yard length, and then abutting to the right, and then the parcel started at 187 back lot. So I'd really like to see that dealt and probably have a pause put on. And we did want to bring Miss Kathy, as the kids in the neighborhood used to call her, because that was the hub of the neighborhood. Generations of kids played in that lot. And for years, we left it open and maintained it so it was available to these kids. There is safety concerns. The reason why we let the Precipitias overgrow a major portion of it, because in the 70s, 80s, 90s, there were multiple incidents where individuals, I'm assuming coming off the turnpike, who are under the influence, blew through James Street down the lot. It helped multiple times. And I mean, it happened up to like 94. I know the 15 Timothy Street, the Spooners at the time had complained, and it eventually, after the last occasion where a motorcyclist jumped the sidewalk, landed in the Precipitias, I remember my brother and I pulled him out. They finally put a sign up. So I think if you open that up, you're going to have some safety concerns, because it's going to look like part of James Street. So the young lady who maintains it, Ms. Fravel over there, and we appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you for your time. I'm a resident at 220 Superior, which is down the street from Timothy, but I did grow up on Timothy Street. And I can attest to what Mr. Fravel just said, that was always kept open for the kids to play and whatnot, which was nice. And I also saw, like he said before, that inadvertent vehicles would go into that area and make it somewhat dangerous for people in that area. But more importantly, with my perspective is, I think that the green space being available for people that live in the neighborhood, especially the residents in that area, is something to be kept for the integrity of this town. Because there's just so much development behind houses and this and that doesn't really make sense for myself in the neighborhood. And I just wanted to say that and support their ability to have it looked at better. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you mind giving us your name? If you don't have to, you're not required
I'm not in
to.
the witness protection program.
Thank you.
Superior.
Thank you.
Not like press people, we usually ask for it, but I don't usually press, you know? No, that's valid. Welcome.
Good evening, Ted Fravel, 105 Centerwood Road. I grew up on Timothy Street, and my first recall, my remembrance of living in Newington is running out the front door, because we grew up in the south end of Hartford, and our next door neighbor's dog Taffy took a chunk out of my leg. So and that is vivid, but like in our house, get tough, and we got a dog. But one of the things, and Claire and Dennis and Bobby went through, living there and growing up there with the cars going through the lot and people cutting through from the Berlin Turnpike that you probably wouldn't see in a traffic survey. One of the guys I work with coaches football in Newington. He says, "Oh yeah, I cut through James Street, Kids Lane all the time because I don't want to take a left at McDonald's where people take a left they shouldn't do. It just makes it easier." I do the same thing too, but I respect the stop signs, and I know that these people have to live with that every single day. The motto of our town, since I worked for Newington for 24 years full time and now in East Hartford 10, is growth and progress. And you get a lot of documents during these situations with TPC and the town manager and attorneys, but somehow I think they put the cart before the horse here, because somebody bought a landlocked piece of property without access to Robbins and Timothy Street. So they feel pretty good about what's gonna happen on the next step. I'm just guessing. I mean, I don't know the relationship the people have with the bank or the person that thought that this is a good idea to do that, but it seems a pretty interesting investment that I'm gonna buy something without being able to get in or out of the driveways. But like the sign says, growth and progress, and in all the documents I read in here, I didn't see a paragraph on say, hey, this is great for the neighborhood. This is gonna add to Newington. You might say it's gonna add some tax dollars, but is it a road that Public Works has to maintain or right away from the standpoint on the day-to-day for town its activities? But there's a lot of paperwork. There's questions to be answered. I don't know that you table this tonight or it moves on to a vote at the end of the meeting. They can probably answer that question, but from where we sit or what we see, it'd be tough to welcome somebody to the neighborhood with a apple pie if they're just gonna dump a house in your backyard. So thank you for your time and
Thank you.
Any other members of the public that would like to come up? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Next item is remarks by counselors on public participation. If I could just start by saying that this evening, the item that you all are here to speak on is before us as new business. So we are not planning on taking action tonight. We would typically, at minimum, receive it as new business. And then at our next meeting, we could consider taking action, but we don't have to. But that's our typical process. So just so you know, tonight we're receiving it as an item, as an introduction. So no action will be taken this evening. And I will say that I read the emails and I appreciate the level of detail and the level of thought that you all put into your comments and your emails, the questions that you posed. This is not something that we often get before us. This is the first time I've dealt with something like this. So it's good for us to hear kind of your concerns and your questions. That helps us form kind of some of the things that we can follow up on and ask about as well. So I appreciate very much the input that you provided us in your emails and in your comments tonight. Anyone else, Counselor? Oh, there's lots of hands up, sorry. I forget to look at my screen. Counselor Page.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to thank you all for your presentation tonight and the letters, as the mayor said. And it does help us have a more informed discussion, and we will do that. Thank you.
Counselor Rada?
Yes, thank you again, excuse me, for the emails and also for coming in person and talking with us. I, for one, want to become more familiar with that property and the adjacent areas, so you may see me pussyfooting around your property. And Miss Claire, Miss Kathy, right? You're a gardener, so am I, so we're gonna have to have a talk. And thank you for maintaining the property the way you have. You know, this is something that's new for all of us, and I think at the very least, I want more information and want to see it with my own eyes and walk the property. So thank you very much for tonight.
Deputy Mayor Pedrejko?
Yes, first of all, Miss Kathy, the forsythias in the picture that somebody sent us were beautiful. So, and I just also want to point out that in addition to the people here, there were, I think, 2 other letters from people who are not here that were about this subject. And Claire, the level, I mean, the questions that you asked were actually some things that I hadn't even thought about. And I too would be interested in getting some of these answers. It's going to be, I think, one way or the other, you know, people are going to end up unhappy, but the points that you brought up and the fact that people from the old neighborhood came out means that there's a lot of sentiment attached to this beyond dollars. So it's just going to be, again, thank you for coming out and pointing this stuff out to us. And it's going to be something we're all going to be thinking about. I'm not quite sure. And I know, you know, TPC will be taking this matter very seriously as well.
Thank you. All right, I don't see any other comments, so we will continue on. The next item this evening is executive session for pending litigation. Who would like to read that motion? All right, Deputy Mayor Bedrejko.
Resolved that the Newington Town Council 1-206B hereby moves to go into executive session and invites the town council members, the mayor, James Krasinski, acting town manager, and Ben Ancona, town attorney, to discuss pending litigation against the town of Newington. M. Mankey versus town of Newington et al.
Second.
Seconded by Council Rada.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously, or passes 8-0. Counselor Camillo absent. Counselor Mankey,
Just as a point of order, I will excuse myself from this executive session.
thank you for letting us know that. We stand in executive session at 7:34 PM. All right, we are back in public session at 8:56 PM. And we will move in now in our agenda to consideration of old business. The first item before us is the ARPA fund allocations. You will remember, counselors, that we did get a presentation the last time on all of the ARPA funds that have been used so far, as well as ones that we are looking to take action on this evening, many of which were reallocated to ARPA during our budget discussions this year.
Is on with us as well.
Good evening, Janet.
Hi.
Is there anything you want to add in terms of a reminder for us or discussion or anything?
I did want to mention that there's one thing added to the resolution here, and it's for the concerts, the Sunday concerts that Keith had discussed with you when he was town manager before we started budget discussions. He got you guys to try to weigh in to make sure if we were going to budget them, if we we're going to put them on the schedule. So those have been scheduled. They're going forward. So I did include that in there, the amount for that. That's the 18,000. That's for this fiscal year and through basically the summer.
Okay, great, thank you. And just for the public that may be listening or watching, the other items that we're looking to, which will be read in, are the fire department fit test machine, the Parks and Recreation pool paints, Eagle Park playground project, town hall canopies, town building roof replacement and repair, police and admin vehicle, and highway and parks garage, and the summer concerts. Those are the items that are being considered this evening. Councilor Rada, did you have a question?
Yeah, Janet, I think you were reading my mind because I had that circled that I don't see the Parks and Rec concerts anywhere else. And what's this 18,000? So thank you for
No problem.
clarifying that.
Yep.
So does that needs to be added on to the total amount that's been proposed to council?
Correct. I itemized them, not to exceed amount like we were talking about before. So it's included in there. So that will, I can update the listing for you guys and send you out. We actually just paid for today the 2 ambulances for EMS. So that's finally got paid for. They should be receiving them shortly. So I can update that with that information and this 18,000 and send out the list to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Menke?
You just had a question, Janet, on the town hall canopies. That was for 2 canopies, correct?
Correct. Yep. 2 canopies, one that goes over the human services area and one over the stairs near the gym.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other council comment or question? Who would like to go ahead and read that resolution for us? Councilor Page?
Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby endorses the use of American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, funds for the following projects: fire department fit test machine not to exceed $14,000, Parks and Recreation pool paint not to exceed $25,000, Eagle Park playground not to exceed $375,000, town hall canopies not to exceed $200,000, town building roof replacement and repair not to exceed $300,000, police administrative or police admin vehicle Ford Explorer not to exceed $71,500, highway and parks garage not to exceed $459,000, parks summer concerts not to exceed $18,000.
Second.
Second by Councilor Rada. Any further discussion, councilors? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0, Councilor Camillo absent. Next item this evening is discussion on the easement for egress ramp at 1042 Main Street.
All right, as we discussed at the last meeting, there was a request for an egress ramp at the rear of 1042 Main Street. I was nice enough to stop out and take a picture this evening. You can see up on the screen there. You can see the adjacency to the drive. That's the single entrance in only off of Cedar Street. And then coming along, you notice the do not enter signs there. So effectively, we'd be coming off of the door on a slight angle, coming over toward the center of the sidewalk. That would allow for a small area, a seating area, I believe it was proposed, as you can see in the blow up. So coming out off the patio area, ramp coming down on the sidewalk, the little plantings to the side of that. But I figured a picture tells a little bit more when you're seeing it that way, and Google really doesn't do it justice. So based upon recommendation by town attorney, tonight's action would be simply to submit this to the TPZ. They won't take it up at their next meeting tomorrow night, but they will take it up as part of their 28th meeting, which will be the same meeting at which the applicant is going to be before the commission. So it'll work in tandem together. So that's one plus. So we'll be able to get our report back in the beginning of July, and the council can determine if we would go forward with that allowance of the easement. If so, we would have the town attorney draft up that document for submission and authorization for the new town manager to execute.
Any council comment or question? Counselor Donahue, do you want to read that one?
Sure. Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby directs and authorizes James Kropinski, acting town manager, to submit to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission for its report in accordance with section 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes, a review of a requested easement to install a ramp near the rear of 1042 through 1046 Main Street.
Second.
Second by Counselor Nagel. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Counselor Camilla absent. Next item this evening is our refunds for June 13th. Deputy Mayor Badrego?
Resolved that property tax refunds in the amount of $3,090.16 are hereby approved in the individual amounts, and for those named on the request for refund of an overpayment of taxes certified by the revenue collector, a list of which is attached to this resolution.
Second.
Second by Counselor Rada. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Counselor Camillo absent. Next item before us is the approval of our minutes. There are 3 for consideration. I would entertain a motion for those. Oh, go
I
ahead.
was not in attendance on May 23rd, so I will not be voting on those.
So we will
minutes.
break these out then.
Sorry.
Counselor Nagel, do you want to do a motion for the first one?
So moved.
To accept May 9th, 2023 special meeting minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Seconded by Counselor Donahue. Any discussion on the May 9th meeting minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Counselor Camilla absent. The next motion I would entertain is to approve the minutes of May 23rd, 2023 regular meeting as written.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Mankey, seconded by Counselor Nagel. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstaining.
Motion passes 7 in the affirmative and 1 abstention. Absent. Next is, I will entertain a motion to approve the May 31st, 2023 special meeting minutes as written. Moved by
Second.
Counselor Nagel, seconded by Counselor Mankey. Any discussion on those? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Counselor Camillo absent. We are now moving into the new business section of our agenda, and the first item this evening is departmental transfers and surplus funds for pension funds. Is this Ms. Murphy that's gonna lead us on this?
Yes.
All right, Janet, you're up.
Sorry about that. I was posting journal entries while you were talking. I won't lie. Well, I want to just quickly go over where we stand. Looks like we'll stand for revenues and expenditures for year end. Starting with the revenues, just to kind of let you know, I gave you these reports to go with it. It looks like at the end of the year, we're going to be about 3.6 million favorable for revenue. The majority of this coming from building permits that's showing like 900,000 positive, and our interest investment earnings about 1.4 million positive. The interest rates have that we've been getting on some of our things in the market has been good to us this year. Hopefully it stays for one more month that way. The other areas that we did have really good favorable returns on are the town clerk fees, where we're showing about $200,000 favorable. The taxes, we started in January, we were behind on collecting for our rate. I'm happy to say we've caught up. It looks like we'll be about $300,000 favorable there. We are back up to, as of the end of May, a 99% collection rate, which I'm really happy about. And the other item that's kind of pushing us over to that 3.6 million is the entry we made for the Board of Ed's MOU during budget time. That was around 400,000, I believe a little over that. So that's all reflected in the numbers you see for revenue. When I gave you these numbers in January, I had in there the sale of National Welding. I've taken that out. That's not in here anymore. I'm not sure when that'll happen, so I didn't want to reflect in our numbers. But even without that, we're still at 3.6 million favorable for revenues, which I was very happy about. For expenditures, we are looking to come in a little over $1 million favorable on the expenditure side. I say that, but when you look at the numbers for Park and Recreation, the 200,000 that they're showing favorable, the majority of that we're going to have to transfer back into the cemetery fund. I don't know if y'all remember, but back during the budget last year, the beginning of the year, right as we kind of approved the budget, we had the option of moving money over to have more people work in the cemeteries. That never happened. Since that didn't happen and we actually took the money from the cemetery fund, we actually have to give it back to them at the end of the year. So the majority of that 200,000 will be going back to the cemetery fund. But all the other areas are showing positive. We're only seeing a couple areas that we're going to need those transfers for tonight. But the majority of that positive is due to some vacancies we had and positions we haven't filled. The town manager's office, we're seeing that there. We're seeing it under general services, which is IT positions that they haven't filled. Police department, as you know, we've had lots of vacancies, and even with the overtime, we're still going to show positive there. The fire departments was due to deputy fire marshals for inspections that didn't totally use up the hours we had budgeted there. Engineering, of course, you know, you just met the new engineer this evening. We had a little bit of a vacancy there. And the building department, they had a vacancy. They were looking to get somebody to come in to help out with all these building projects and developments in town. They were looking for a part-time position. The market's so bad to try to find that. They're going to take a different approach for the new fiscal year. And human services was also down one position there. With all that being said, we are seeing those be favorable. And we're looking, the areas that we're seeing a little stress on would be for the town attorney budget line. We're looking for $15,400 there. We continue to have some labor issues we're clearing up. And the highway department for $28,100. They had a Bobcat equipment that actually, a big piece of equipment that's going to cost more than close to $29,000, but they're finding some of the other things there that isn't covered under warranty. They couldn't get insurance on it and they need to get that repaired. So that was kind of an end of the year thing that we saw. Both these items we're looking to take out of the contingency, which will still leave about a little over 80,000 left in the contingency at the end of the year. Looks like you've got some hands up for questions.
All right, Deputy Mayor Madrigal.
I was just curious about the cemetery fund, because I know that there were supposed to be some hires. What was it that they decided they didn't need them or they couldn't find?
I don't know why they weren't filled. That's probably more a question for James. I think that was a negotiation with the union, but I'm not positive. But since we never used that money for the intended use, which was to hire those people for the cemetery, that needs to be returned to them.
So if you remember a few meetings back, we discussed the settlement agreement with ASME. Part of that settlement agreement, the union determined and the town sort of agreed in the fact that the issue really wasn't so much the fact of needing direct cemetery maintainers, which based upon what's in that fund would have cleaned it out within 3 to 4 years. It made more sense to see positions filled that had been vacant for quite some time. So in that department, we had, I believe it was 9 groundskeeper ones. We had no 2s, we had no 3s, but we had all of those ones working outside of their classification each of those times. So part of the settlement that happened with that union was we agreed that we were going to fill those positions, preventing the need for additional staffing on the cemetery side, but still getting that work done and having supervisors that would be able to take that over. So that was the main reason that we went the other route, and while we were looking to return those funds back to the cemetery fund. Because really, that's a perpetual fund. We do use it for the limited times that they do services for the cemetery, but it really shouldn't be a payroll fund directly.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Page?
Can I just ask a question about that, unless you're not done? Okay, so just bottom line in terms of the cemetery maintenance, there's a renewed focus under Mr. Chapman and now under you to make sure those are going to be maintained at a high standard. Okay, so that's not being interrupted.
I can actually tell you that we met with a gentleman last week who was concerned about the veterans area. That was actually on the parks radar already. There were some overgrown yews, so they've been out there doing maintenance on those, removing those, and they're going to be looking at some replacements in that area.
Great. I just had one other question for Janet, I think, which is, can you just clarify, maybe I'm misreading it. Do we have an overage in our favor for investment income? And is that, if that's so, is that because I know the market has picked up in the last 6 months or year?
Yeah, so what you're seeing there on the revenue, it's kind of misleading because negative numbers on revenue is good. So yes, you're seeing a favorable variance there of about where it's anticipated like 1.4 million. And it is,
that's a huge number.
Yeah, it is because of the market. So remember, this is not just interest income, but it's also market losses. And we were very conservative when we did that. But I can tell you that like our investment, we have the majority of our investments, see the monthly things in the state investment fund, the STIF fund. And this past month, that made a little over 5% for us. So they're coming in like with literally every month, the last few months, over $200,000 of just interest income for just that investment at 5%. So yeah, I mean, last year we're lucky if we saw 0.10, and this year we're seeing 4 to 5% ongoing for almost the whole year.
So I probably don't know enough about how this works, but is there a way to protect that? It's sort of like we're up at it with house money. Can we put that aside?
Yeah. If we could do that, we'd all be rich.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's put that aside, protect it. So, all right, that's all I got.
Put it all on black.
And now I kind of want to go into the second part of this transfer request. There's been, when we just talked about markets, a pretty good segue into this. The market's gone up, the market's gone down. It's kind of playing a little bit havoc with our pension funds now and then. So I want to look every year that if we have an opportunity to actually put extra money into our pension funds to get ourselves, increase our funding ratio on that, I would look to do that at the end of every year. I'm asking for not more than $300,000 of unappropriated funds at the end of this year. The majority of those are all, as I said, favorable variances from salaries and from benefits. That's what I'm trying to do to put the police, the admin, and the municipal pensions back in line. Well, help put them back in line. They won't totally get there. We do contribute the amount every year that our actuary tells us to contribute, but when you have a bad investment year like we did last year, that's not going to save you. So this year we are doing fairly well. We're not showing the investment losses that we did as the prior year, but I want to continue trying to bring up that percentage showing of funded for those pension funds.
Okay. And I just, point of clarification, when we talk about the town attorney line you mentioned earlier, it's not the town attorney that's getting extra money. It really is those outside services that we have to contract for certain needs.
The whole
like you mentioned,
department,
labor.
yeah, the whole department is called town attorney.
Right.
That's what
I just
the
want to
whole
make sure when
department-
people hear
Yep.
that they realize it's not like extra salary for.
Nope,
Yeah.
it's the labor issues that we had ongoing still. I think we thought it would kind of fizzle out, but we're still having quite a few meetings. So that continues to kind of be sort of, we're already over right now, and I only have the bills from them through February, I think. So that's the reason for that. Yep.
Any other questions, counselors? If not, we'll move this to our next agenda for Consideration of action? Okay, we're all set with that. Next item this evening is the suspense list. This is an annual undertaking where we are looking at the uncollectible taxes. Janet, are you gonna do this one also?
Yep. So, this one, our revenue collector, I put together the list for you. She does this on an annual basis. These are ones that they're deeming they're seeing as maybe uncollectible. The total this year is $163,860.31. That's actually 870 accounts that she's sending to suspense. Now, we send it to suspense because you annually have to look through and determine which ones are going to be uncollectible. But that's not saying we can't still collect the taxes. As she said in her memo here, the town collected 52,000 in suspense for the 2022-23 year. So
this was an updated memo on your desk. So I just want to make
update.
sure, because I was like, that figure's not exactly what we had. There's an updated memo on our desk. I was just making sure everybody
It's
saw
right here
it.
in front of us, thanks.
That was the third revision.
That was the third version, sorry. So yeah, so it's an annual undertaking, as the mayor said, and these are ones that they're deeming uncollectible, but doesn't mean we won't still collect money. If somebody comes in to pay, it doesn't mean they get off the hook. It just means it goes into suspense as per statute.
Okay.
Janet, could you just, I don't want to belabor the point, but just give us a quick rundown of how these taxes are collected? I mean, these are taxes that are due. What's the
These are
process to
taxes
collect them?
due. If once they don't get due, they'll get the delinquent notice. They'll also start sending them to, oh my God, sorry. Constables, that's the word I said. They'll send them to constables. If they don't get any reply to those, and it's been a specific time, they will deem them uncollectible. But once again, if you have something like this motor vehicle and stuff, then you have to register it. There's not saying, or if you have any kind of personal property or thing that you want to sell, they're going to come in and they're going to pay those taxes to get the lien taken off.
Right.
So we get our money eventually, it just takes a little longer.
Yep, you can, but they have to reflect somewhere what they think is uncollectible, and that's what the suspense list is.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Page?
I would just quickly say, I want to thank Janet and James and all the staff in our town hall who work hard to have such a wonderfully high collection rate. So thank you.
Corinne's group has done a really great job again this year. We're consistently over 99%, so that's awesome.
I think we should thank the taxpayers for paying the taxes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's.
Thank you, taxpayers.
That saves us a lot of stress.
We do have good president.
All right, I think we're all set with that one. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. The next item before us is departmental fees update, chapter 225 cemetery. Mr. DeMayo, if you saw in the memo, is requesting a 2% increase in the costs for the cemetery services. Funds received for services are deposited in the perpetual funds for future maintenance costs. Mr. Kropinski, you want to give us?
We will be seeing a few of these come before you. We've gotten a couple of requests, but due to the way that they were incorporated into the official fee schedule that we had before, I could only get this one to you. Specifically, this one has a time constraint on it as well, because this goes into effect for July 1st. It was the understanding of the commission and the sexton that when he originally brought this before the council in 2018, that he did present a proposal to have it increase by 2% each year, and he assumed that that had been part of our resolution, and it wasn't. So when it went out to all of the membership and to the local funeral homes to inform them of the new costs, I informed them that those fees weren't completely valid at this time, and they need to be adopted by the council at this point. So the question which will come to you is, are you comfortable allowing for a 2% escalation per year, or would you like the fees to come back to you as a council? That's the big question. Now, technically, the manager can waive it, but I prefer to make sure that our fees are easy to find. And if it's something that's not coming before council and it's simply a memo coming from the department head, sometimes that can be a little bit more difficult to keep track of.
I mean, I understand the need for escalation, but I guess I don't like the idea of making it an automatic without having something to substantiate that each year. So I would prefer that it come back for consideration either each year or as needed.
And that's why in
Personally.
2018, we had a comparison of the different towns and what their costs were. Yep.
That's just my opinion, though. There's 9 of us, so. Deputy Mayor Badreko?
Yeah, I'm just, okay, yeah, because I noticed that 2% thing at the bottom of the, whatever
Why I
request,
wanted
but
to
says,
bring that up.
so in 2018, the assumption was that we were gonna be doing 2% a year.
That was what they presented on their cost comparison. Now, that is not what we put into our official resolution that approved the fees, but since 2018, or technically the 2019 fiscal year, they've been going upon the assumption that they have a 2% increase.
So have they been increasing every year, 2%?
This was the first time as the town manager, I actually saw this come out, which is why I addressed it with
So
them.
they're not like behind and.
They're not behind at all.
Okay.
They're actually online with where they were expected to be at this point. The difference is these go into effect for July 1st, but we haven't taken the time to adopt them properly.
And the last study, I mean, the comparison was done in 2018, because it seems 2% is certainly reasonable.
And then in our, yeah, definitely.
So technically, it's been happening automatically, we just didn't know.
Correct. Which would mean that our current schedule that we had as of 2018 was incorrect each year because that wasn't being supplied either. And that's one of the reasons that I brought that up.
Yeah, I think I guess, I think it's important we do a comparison to other cemeteries around to make sure we're in the market, overly high or overly low. And I guess it doesn't take us a lot of time to look at this, but I think it should come back to the council every time.
Yeah.
Because with 2%, but I'm not sure what the 2% is based on. Is it based on labor costs? Is it based on material costs? Why 2, not 3? What if it's inflation hits and it should be 3? And if we lock ourselves into 2, then we're never going to look at it again, and it'll just keep going.
They may fall behind in that time period as
Right.
well.
So I think it's important the council look at it and periodically do a comparison between what other towns charge and what we charge. Just to be on this, in the market. I don't want to be at the high part of the market. I don't want to be at the low part of the market. I just want to be in the middle.
And similarly, like with department fees for other services, that typically has to come to us. That's not an automatic, or we don't allow department heads to do that at
We'll
will.
usually give
So-
you the comparison of what they are currently at and what they're proposing to be at, and usually an explanation as to why those fees
Right.
are increasing.
Right.
Correct.
Which I'm in agreement with it. I don't think it's a bad idea. I just want to make sure that we keep an eye on it, so to speak. Counselor Rada?
Yeah, I also agree. I'd like to see this done annually. And also a comparison, is there time between
I'm
now
sure
and
that-
the next, and our next council meeting to have that some of that information gathered so that we can take a look at it?
Yep, I will send them the original spreadsheet that they gave us in 18 and ask them to update it to current numbers.
Thank you.
Other council comment or question?
Yeah, actually,
Deputy Mayor Badreko?
talks about, well, I guess the only cemetery we have, West Meadow Cemetery. The others, there's some interments every year, but very few at the Center Cemetery and.
Yeah, we'll have disinterments and reinterments generally, but not that that's considered an active location.
So the fees and whatever are pretty much
West Meadows, yeah, but they'll utilize them in the other cemeteries.
as well, okay.
We're all set with that. We'll move that to our next agenda also. And then next item this evening is placement of coverage for property casual liability insurance and workers' compensation. And in the memo, it does talk about the fact that the Standing Insurance Committee met on June 6th to review the placement of coverage for the LAP and workers' comp insurance. The renewal quote from Kerma, as well as an optional quote from Travelers, were compared. And after review, the committee voted unanimously to accept a 3-year rate stabilization agreement offer from the current carrier of Kerma. And the 3-year agreement keeps the fiscal year 23-24 flat, and then offers a maximum increase of plus 5% for fiscal year 24-25 and fiscal year 25-26. It looks like there was the 0% increase offer from Kerma was roughly $300,000 less than the quote received from Travelers. So that is certainly a good thing.
If in our
Yeah.
favor, yes. one of the first times in quite a few years that we've actually gone out to compare coverage, and the fact that our current insurance company, PERMA, was the lower bid still was a benefit for one thing, because it's a lot to move all of our insurance over to another carrier at the same time. So with this, on the next meeting on the 27th, there would be the authorization, if you notice at the last 2 pages of it, an authorization to execute the town's commitment to that and have that in place for July 1st.
All right, council comment or question,
Just a
Councilor
quick
Page?
question for those on the committee. How many, it went out to bid and we got 2 or 3 or 4 offers?
We, I can speak, because apparently I chair the committee. Who knew I knew that much about insurance? Apparently, there are very few companies that write insurance for municipalities, and there's a lot of risk involved, I guess, and that's what sort of drives them from the market. So we did, back in the fall, we voted to send it out, and Travelers was one of we have a broker that handles this, and he recommended Travelers might be somebody comparable and we can work with. So we did go to Travelers. They did extensive interviews with staff and with department heads and see what the town's about, and they wrote up they met with the Board of Ed and all their holdings, and they wrote up a policy or a proposal, and it was more expensive than what Kermer provided. It was a good exercise, because now you know what the cost is, but it's it's one of those things that who knew what we had was the cheaper of the rate. So
It's good to know.
it was good. We did get on the 6th, we did get a presentation by Kerma of what they would do, and there's a lot of advantage to the current company, especially if they're the cheapest. And in this case, they were by far the cheapest.
Thanks.
Councilor Nagel?
I was going to add that Kerma has traditionally, just over the many years that I've been on the council and sometimes on this committee, that Kerma's always been the most agreeable, the most economical and acceptable for our needs. And as Councilor Menke has pointed out, there are very few options to choose from, and this committee involves people who are knowledgeable about insurance and this kind of measure that adds to the viability of choosing Kerma again.
Yeah, I would just add to that, we hire a broker that deals with the insurance, and he's the one that's the kind of the point person for the different carriers. And he would go to if we had a question, and he recommended Travelers and Kerma, and he recommended Kerma when he got the results, and we didn't even interview Travelers because the rates were so out of whack.
Okay. Any other comment or question on this one? We'll move this to our next agenda for consideration. Next item this evening is the TPZ referral of sale of town land, 21 Timothy Street, which we all heard earlier this evening. We did have some folks that live near this parcel that had some concerns to share with us, and some questions certainly that I don't know if we have the answer tonight, but we can certainly ask that those be supplied to us before the next meeting. But
I haven't seen the email, so I'll be interested. If
oh, I
somebody
thought
could
you were
forward-
copied on them.
I wasn't, unfortunately. I did meet with Ms. Fravel as well as Ted Fravel. I spoke with him on the phone. I met with her in person. She stopped by the office on Monday morning, so was able to get her in and discuss what was being proposed there. So we did have a little bit of time.
Okay, I'll forward you the email. It came in through the council
Right. I don't have
box,
access
which
on
I
that
always
one.
think you have access to.
Nope.
Okay.
That is all for you guys fun. So as you can see, we did receive the request for the initiation of the sale, as well as the response back to the attorney's office and the prospective buyer, as well as the abutter notifications as required under the policy that we discovered. And as I said, we've been getting some comments that have been coming through. When I spoke with her on Monday, I did indicate to her that we do have the public participation format, and she can also send emails to the council for notification. So I wanted to make sure they understood they have a lot of different options, and this wasn't something that was just going to happen. There was going to be a large process. There was going to be council. There was going to be TPZ. There was going to be at the end point, a report by the town manager to the council and a public hearing to receive comments, and then that would finally come to you as a final decision-making process after you received all the information, comments from public, and have had the time to review that report. So it's not something that will just happen next meeting. There's a lot of a process to still go through.
Okay, so the questions was Sir Ms. Fellow had about 7 or 8 pretty detailed questions. So before we refer it to TPZ, do we get those questions answered? I mean, what's the time frame in the process?
As part of the policy, the only thing you are looking for from TPZ is specifically a review of the parcel, the recommendation of whether or not it should or should not be sold, and if they choose to, a recommendation of another possible use, whether it be remaining as open space. They may recommend allocating to both owners, any other number of options are available that they could come up with.
So what does that mean in terms of, do we?
For us, we're still going through the process. So those questions will still be things that we can answer.
Somebody will be getting answers to those questions,
Good.
even
During the
by
process.
parallel that it might be going to TPZ.
Because at that same point, we'll also be bringing on the appraiser to start the appraisal on the property, which is paid by the applicant.
Will TPC be able to get copies of all the letters that we've gotten?
I don't see
Is
any
this
reason
part of
why
the
not.
public?
It's relative to the application coming before them and a way to inform them of their review of that parcel.
Can we send them or attach that to the? Okay.
I can make sure that Mr. Dixon supplies that to them as part of the referral. That referral won't go through to them until at least the 28th.
Maybe even our minutes from the meeting.
Yep.
The public participation for the meeting in our discussion.
Now, as part of that, would you, and I'm going to ask that question, and I know my recording secretary is going to stare me down. Do you want that as a verbatim section, or are you fine with the attachment of the email to those for her?
Oh, that's right. We don't do, I'm thinking.
We don't do
TPC.
verbatim,
I know,
so-
I'm thinking TPC, I'm sorry.
Got the
For them to
email.
watch the meeting online.
Did they submit those same questions via email to you?
They did.
So can we just attach those to the minutes as well?
Asking.
But some people spoke that didn't.
Yeah, you can, yeah,
Right.
there were 2 people that spoke who did not send emails.
Ms. Travel had sent an email and had notes with
And there were
her.
a few emails that did not come to speak to. so-
Right, I only had 3 emails.
Yeah, it looks like we just got another one.
Yeah, another one just came in too.
Yeah. I just forwarded them all to you. Okay.
So I'll make sure that.
No, they don't have to be
all gets
verbatim.
I've done it.
I'm just trying to think if I have any other questions. Counselor Rada, sorry.
Yeah, well, the residents can also be informed that they can speak during public participation at the TPC.
Oh, yes.
And
If they hold a public hearing. I don't believe that's going to be held
No.
as a public hearing. I think
It'll-
that's
so
going
it won't
to just
be-
be,
Okay.
right.
You can only speak to what's not on the agenda.
Exactly, yeah.
And I know, but I do believe the chairman can waive that. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Not, I don't think I'm on the
No?
24.
Okay. I wasn't
I
sure.
don't know.
I'm just asking that question because you were one.
Excuse me.
And the TPC provides us with a recommendation.
Correct.
And we make the final,
To us, that's usually one that we put on
and we take
file.
the final vote.
Yes. Yes. That's a little bit further down the line.
Yeah.
Yes. And the endpoint, the council is the ultimate determiner
Right.
on it.
Thanks.
Sorry. Go ahead, Counselor Hanky.
I just want to, I guess, try to get this straight in my mind, and I'll try to drive by that to see the site. We're talking about a parcel of land that's between 2 houses, that's about a road width. is what
It's
we're
50
talking
feet in
about.
width.
50 feet in width.
And I believe it is, yeah, it's 0.19 acres. I want to say it is 80 feet deep.
But I just want to make it clear, the land behind that is now open space is not town property, it's owned by.
That's privately owned and it's
owned
not
by
behind.
individuals.
So that's
Well,
the
it's not
piece.
open space, but it's
So-
undeveloped space,
But
right?
it's not space we could turn into a park or used for other purposes because someone owns it.
Right.
We
Yeah,
we only control that 50 feet.
we control the 50 feet. We've actually, that one goes back to a very long period ago where actually that was signed off in volume 3 of the selectmen records for acceptance of the outlay of roadways at the time. So before we got into the whole TPZ piece of it.
And I think one of the questions was raised whether we have, it's in the documents that we own this piece, and we do own this piece.
We do own that piece that was accepted by the selectmen.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we have the history on the sale of the property in terms of, one of the emails that we received said that it was sold as having
I'm gonna look.
access on Robbins Ave to that piece?
So if I look on the GIS, it does show us 2 individual parcels. There was some discussion originally with Mr. Hinckley and the applicant that there may have been an existing easement that was allowed coming into that second parcel. That's no longer allowed under our zoning regulations. So in that aspect, that could be one of the reasons that there is some confusion as to access to the parcel. And that was one of the, may have been the reasons they came forward looking at that secondary stub as access back to their parcel now. Because in order to make any development, they do have to have a certain amount of frontage along a town roadway that's been accepted.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Rodrigo?
So the rear lot, was it a rear lot? I'm just curious as to, were there 2 separate owners of the property in front and the rear lot, or was it one owner and the owner subdivided the lot and sold it to another?
Let me see if I actually saved.
Do we have a title? Do we do a title search on it?
We did the basic on it. Give me 1 second here. I want to be able to show you guys the overlay here. Okay, that's better. Okay, there we go. And close that out. And
I can't believe it's a piece of property for the life of me.
It's had it for sale signed up for the longest time.
It has, yeah.
It's kind of across from,
okay. So,
Weekly. Yeah,
so on your screens in front of you and for the public itself,
before Kids Lane.
James Street to your right side here. As you come in, this stub road area is what we're discussing.
Yep.
The parcel is these 2 parcels. So you've got the frontage along Robbins Ave, and then you've got the rear parcel. Now this is Google Maps, so
There's a home in front of that, right?
there is a home in front of that. And as I said, there appears to have been some sort of an easement agreement, which isn't allowed anymore for a rear access point to a proposed home. So that's why they're looking at that additional stub road. As you can see, that runs for about 50 to 55 feet along their south border.
Because on East Robbins, there are a bunch of back lots that have, yeah,
And they actually
That are
have some
developed.
shared driveways that work in that same aspect.
right,
Correct. But those were built at a different time period and the zoning regulations have
have
changed since then.
changed.
So that's one of the pieces that we're still navigating overall.
Now, where is that street supposed to go through?
James Street was actually supposed to continue all the way through, and I believe it was meant to tie into Harmon Court. As you can see, we have that stub road, but apparently over time they took and they transferred properties back and forth, and just it never came to fruition. Whether it was gonna go that full way through or if it was gonna come up a little bit further and tie back into Robbins Ave. I haven't looked at that specific piece. I don't know if it's actually, actually even on the mapping that I have for that, I believe the only thing it showed me was just to that stub road, but give me 1 second here.
Is that all on the original subdivision map?
What was that?
Is that all on the original subdivision?
That's what I was
map?
gonna pull up. I think I've got it with me here.
I mean, didn't somebody say people use it as a shortcut to get to the Berlin Turnpike?
No, they use the Kits Lane, cut in James Road, all of that. It's a sort of a tie-in to come onto Robbins Ave without having to get stuck in everything else.
Yeah.
Like Holly.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I've used it. I use it all the time myself.
I do too.
Yeah, I didn't save it in this file. It's actually on the actual network drive, so I don't have that with me.
Close to the heart of
So
But-
was that rear lot?
Yeah.
Was that part Was the owner of did it belong to the house?
I have to pull those cards and those are on the different drive.
Because it looks like there's an awful lot of other, I don't know, rear lots that, I don't know.
That's our one now.
Like you've got this one here off
Yeah.
of Brockett, which is
How
a
do they
weird
get out?
style.
Yeah. it-
They have, there's
will they
some
ever
of
be
them, like you
sold?
said, they have a shared driveway.
This-
Oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah, a little bit of a better overview there.
Mm.
So as James comes in, it's all treed and areaed. Now you've got this is the house that we're talking about. Now, if they were able to, they would be able to connect the driveway directly into this. They can't do a shared driveway on that one anymore.
So was the person that purchased this back lot under the assumption that there could be a shared driveway? There could be access and egress from Robbins?
That is a possibility. I don't have the inner workings and thoughts of the real estate agent and what
Yeah.
was done for their title searching on it.
And so James, where on this is the piece that they're looking to gain
It'll be
access
right
from?
here.
Right there.
Right there.
This is your stub road.
That's what we're deciding. now.
Yep.
On, and that would tie into this parcel piece. So just like we saw in the street, this whole piece here would tie into the 187 rear parcel.
And that wouldn't then open up the ones below it, because that would be a private, if it was sold.
If it was sold, it wouldn't be a road. That was
wouldn't
one
be
of
a
the
road,
things that
so-
was
'cause
mentioned.
There's those other open lots that are like below it, sort of.
Well, there's houses on those
Those
though.
are all houses. They just have a
Those are
larger,
open lots.
these
No, there's houses.
these all
They're
have houses.
It's a long house with a really long yard.
They have a
Oh,
deep,
with
it's a
yard.
deep lot.
They're very unusual, the way they laid out all these lots, but there are very few that actually have a double, like this 173 and 178 Brockett has a double or a triple if you look at it. 187 doesn't have that and everything else is fronted. So now you're just looking at, as we go further down, you've got some that are two lots on two houses on a lot. It's an unusual area, but it's based upon the time period. I believe it was 1928 when this subdivision was built.
So what stops? Whatever this one is at the bottom by the Google piece, right? What stops that person from subdividing their lot?
Yeah.
And using the stub road?
Out there, are you talking about
Yeah.
this one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Effectively, they couldn't do anything with the back
Same
parcel.
issue.
It would be the same issue and they could come to us and say, hey, they want to buy that because they want to build something back there with frontage on the roadway. It's the same effective issue. If they subdivided that, they would have to go to TPZ for the subdivision because it wouldn't be a first split. The subdivision was already done. So there'd be that process first and then they'd have to justify why they split a lot that didn't meet zoning in that area as well. There's a lot of fun with this area. It's an R12, so you have to have double the acreage in order to build it. Now, looking at this still may not give them enough space in order to do that. And based upon that issue, we actually may have our town engineering department survey the parcel piece, ours, to confirm the actual amount of square footage that is part of that lot. So that when they look at their secondary lot that they currently own, to determine whether they have the full frontage and lot size they'd need. Otherwise, then they'd still, on top of everything else, still have to go to the zoning board of appeals, which may not be approved. There's a lot of steps.
There is,
There
there is.
Okay.
Maybe we have to combine them too.
Right. They'd have to combine those into two lots in order to create a single parcel size, not being across lines.
We're getting close to 10. We need to.
Okay.
That's helpful to see the map, thank you.
I meant to bring the other ones with me so you guys could see the original subdivision, but this at least shows how the stub road ties into it. So effectively, believe it or not, right at this line, I believe that is where the old subdivision ended. So literally it ended at the stub road and that was it. So that's why it's a harder one to say exactly the angling it was going to go. But for the most part, it looked like similar to some of our other roads, like Cedarwood was originally meant to keep going all the way up through, up to Main Street. It never happened. It ended up going up the hill, all of those things.
Okay. So we will move this to the next agenda and we'll be hoping to get some more
More
Information
on
and
it.
answers.
We'll get you guys the title information, some mapping, so you can see a little bit more detail. At this point, it's just going to be a referral to TPC for their report. We're not taking any specific action, but we'll
Okay.
get those questions answered as part of the emails and be able to give those to TPC and hopefully respond back to each of the homeowners with their concerns as well.
Thank you. Next item this evening is update to the classification and pay plan. I'll leave this up to you, James.
This one's actually an easy one, which let me just get past all the. So as we tend to do each year, now that we've sort of caught up in a better cycle where we actually approve our prospective increases as part of the actual budget versus having to transfer them at the end of the year. This will be the proposed 2% that we discussed for the admins, and the new salary tables would go into effect as of July 1st, 2023 for the next fiscal year. Having it in place again, similar to the cemetery fees, that would all be set, and any new hires would know exactly the pay ranges that we were utilizing as part of the schedule.
And the 2% was already budgeted for.
2% was already budgeted for in our budget deliberations this spring, correct? The only ones that we didn't have that included in was the Ask Me union for their fourth-year contract negotiations. We weren't able to apply those directly in, so we utilized that as contingency to correct them later.
Any council comment official?
It just,
Pretty status quo.
2% it was contracted, but negotiated, right?
This is admin, this isn't.
These are not
Is that-
union.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? No? Move this to our next agenda. Manager.
Oh, it is.
It is. Let's see, so I just would.
One more.
The last.
I thought you said last, and I was like, wait,
Don did say we only heard last.
I didn't bring the cake, no.
Well, you report it down.
Okay, Mike Tillif.
Yeah.
2 more years, no. So one thing that we've been talking about for quite some time was badges for town employees. Specifically, believe it or not, it was the highway department that was excited about this because the highway superintendent has been asking for quite some time. So we now all have those.
Oh, great.
So we've, over the past 3 weeks, the fire marshal, as emergency management director, has been getting everybody's pictures done, badges rolled out, so everybody should have one at this point.
Access to all the locks and.
No, this one is simply, we didn't do an RFID on these ones. We already have our standard fob. These are just identification, similar to what the Board of Ed does already. So,
Well, realistically, if there were ever an emergency or a need for an evacuation, you want to be able to easily identify who employees are versus others, right? It might be a threat.
especially when we have members that are going to locations. So the engineers going out, staff's going out, you want to be able to identify that individual as a member from the town.
Mhm.
So it's a benefit for us overall, so it was good to get it implemented. Question that came up earlier on the National Welding site. I think I addressed this with you a couple of meetings back. The organization had some issues with one of their lending institutions, so they're sort of on a holding pattern right now. We are still first on their list. We'll be before Southington, but they are still working out some details on that. They have some local banks in the area that they are in contact with. They like to stay local when they're doing their developments, and they're hoping to have that in place pretty soon. But at this point, with the way the economy is, a lot of the banks have pulled out of any additional funding at the moment. So just understand we are working with them to try and get it all completed.
Briefly, if worst case scenario, that didn't work out, where does that leave us? Where we go back to ground zero with marketing this?
We'd end up having to marketing. We've got some agreements in place with them, so we'd have to look at the language that's already been adopted with us. They've already put in, I believe we have 4 checks that are held against the property right now. So we'd have to look at how that would affect it.
Because at a certain point, we want to.
We do want to move it along, most definitely, but if we have a viable plan and we have an approved TPZ plan where somebody doesn't have to go back through the process again, and we've got all of our state approvals, this is our better route to go, so we don't want to. Yeah. Yep.
No pan.
Hmm?
Banks are starting.
They're
to
starting to, but
get
hopefully
a little
we'll
bit
start to
more.
see that a little bit more.
Did you say time frame they're saying on this or?
We were hoping to be finished by the end of this month, but I don't think that'll happen. So I would assume by the completion of first quarter in the next fiscal year.
Okay.
And then the last thing, as we were discussing during the budget transfer requests, we actually have interviews coming up for building officials to assist with the development that is going on currently in town. I believe, is that Thursday, Wednesday? We've got a few things going on for interviews right now, so I have to think which one this is. We have testing tomorrow morning for groundskeepers. We have interview for building official. It's got to be for the building officials. I think we had 2 or 3 that were being brought in for that one. Yes. Sorry, I had to think about it. I was looking what was on the screen there in my head. So we'll be going through that. Hopefully we'll have those in place for them to make the summer a little bit easier on them. They've been flat out with all the development going on. So we'll have that in place. We actually have interviews that are being reviewed right now for clinical social worker in the Human Services Department. That was a position that was vacant as we discussed during the budget season. So we'll have interviews completed on that one. And what was the other one that we had going on there? Oh, we have interviews going for the deputy assessor as well. A current one is currently part-time, and she's hoping to take the entire possible month of July off. But hopefully we'll be able to keep her on to be able to do a little transition training with that individual.
Okay.
So.
Question, yeah, the building officials, those are gonna be like contracted positions, correct?
We were looking at the contracted positions. It was getting harder and harder to find anybody who would take that on. So we are looking at that as a full-time position, as a transition area as well. So the discussion we had with the current building official, because he's indicated that in a few years he will be looking to retire, we wanted to make sure we'd have somebody who had knowledge of the town, because both himself and his assistant would be looking about the same time period.
So how many are you looking at?
We're looking at one right now.
One
Right.
position? Yeah, because it sounded, I mean, the building's not gonna, the boom is not gonna happen forever, and so we don't wanna overstaff.
But we want to make sure when we're preparing for this, we're not cutting off our face and saying, okay, you're here for a year, and then 2 years down the line, now we're back in the same position, trying to go out, interview, and prepare to transition somebody when we could have had somebody there learning under them already. Yep. And that is all I have for tonight.
Okay.
Any news on the Fen Road car wash?
There was an issue with MDC finalizing some permits on that one. We haven't heard any confirmation as to that being done yet. I don't know why I would have a car wash staying that long, especially in the middle of summer, but that one is still holding out there, unfortunately.
Well, you think it would have been settled before they built it?
Well, no, that came into some connection issues.
Yeah.
So that's why it's taken a little bit longer. It's sort of the similar problem that we had at 3333 Berlin
Okay.
Turnpike and the fog collection, those type of things. So
All right.
they are working on it, but hopefully we'll see it come online pretty soon.
So we're not on the hook for that.
No, that's not on us.
Okay.
No, there's a back and forth between MDC, ourselves, and how the permits are issued and who are issues ahead of time. So we
Just real briefly, I know
Sure.
we want to, the Keeney Manufacturing, the sign out front, retail, it's exciting. Any quick update on that?
I haven't gotten anything back from Armin on that one. I'll have to touch base with Paul in the morning. Last time I was in there, they were doing all of the gutting of the interior. They had a great layout. They were talking about some nice full glass front areas for restaurants and just getting that view there. They wanted to get the Main Street view most opened because that was going to be their focal point to pull people into that as a retail shop. So I'm looking forward to seeing that one too. It reminds me of a Quincy Market style, but in the middle of Newington.
That's
I
wonderful.
was out with me in Phoenix Pizza, and the guy from there was asking him if he would be interested in moving into that new spot. So there's some activity going on.
They've been having the conversations and they have specific business types they're looking for. But they know they may not be able to fill all the spaces with it. So if they do, they'll transition to other renters. But for right now, I think he's got a pretty solid plan and they're really excited to move on.
Any interest yet with the old Premier Cleaner site?
Nothing on that one. That was actually a discussion we had about them possibly acquiring it, or, you know, the family, they're going through an estate on that one. But also that would be a brownfield site. So that may be something that we need to be a joint partner on. And whether that's a cleanup or that's a full raise and turn that into additional parking along Market Square, which would benefit that development at Keeney as well as downtown. That's something we'd have to speak on as a council and as the planning board as well.
Do you have any privately owned? We'd have to wait and see how
Privately
they
owned,
choose to.
Right, it's not our
move
choice.
forward, right?
And
That's not
then
ours yet.
we'd be on the same hook that we did with National Welding. We need to look for additional fundings for cleanup, for the dry cleaning chemicals, those type of things, unless we were to go the route of capping it and making it a parking lot. So that's a possibility.
But right now it's privately owned.
Right
So it's
now it's
not- that's
privately
not
owned.
even on the.
It's not
table.
even on the table
I
for
just
us.
want to be clear, because people hear that and then.
No,
Yeah, and
exactly.
I want to be clear, that's not ours.
Believe me, when we were in that building, we all looked at that and said, that would be a great spot for you guys if you could get them to say you're gonna sell it to you, because that would open up that whole north side for them as a visibility.
Yep.
But
Lightness and,
yeah,
yeah,
it would make a big difference along that building, especially when the fencing comes down, but
yeah,
just in general. So
it would be
we'll
nice.
see where it goes.
Counselor Nagel?
Are there any future, are there any plans or information that has come to you concerning the ongoing process with Cedar Street and that area that even goes up Fenn Road, in terms of what the state is doing in terms of paving and so on? It becomes quite a problem at various times with the public, even to notify them, or do you have any additional information from the state you can share?
No more than we put onto our website to inform the public that there was going to be a milling and paving from the New Britain line directly to Willard Avenue. Now, I will say that the contractors did not draw the lines correctly because they drew our straight through line into the turn lane at the intersection of Willard Ave. Now, the engineer was aware of that. Unfortunately, it wasn't something they were going to correct because they are supposed to be completing that work within the week. And then adjacent to Cedar Point was the expansion of that roadway for the ingress egress to the site itself. So that was something that they had to finish at the same time. I'm not sure if any of that's holding that up. But the last conversation I had was they were supposed to be finishing that up pretty soon.
God, I hope so.
Yeah.
It is quite a
Trucks
mess.
Backing up in the middle of the night or loud.
Yeah.
I can say the finance director and other individuals they got off of Route 9 and they were in traffic for 15 minutes just to get to the town hall in the morning. So we know how that's affecting everything else.
And in terms of those of us that live in town knowing choices and where to make to get to wherever, in the morning, it's kind of like a crapshoot in terms of which way to go to avoid. And I know most people like to avoid as much of Cedar Street as they can, but they have to take part of it.
What I found interesting was because they informed us what was going on, so we made sure that a public notice was put on our website regarding it as a news blast. What I found interesting about it was they asked us what projects were going to be going on along roadways. And then, of course, it's a project that they approved and required the developer to do. And they didn't take that into account into their work.
It's still on Robbins too. It's just gonna happen.
Robbins
That's gonna
should
happen,
be
and where it's gonna
getting
happen.
done pretty soon, yeah. That one's just wrapping up a little bit more. They were supposed to be getting the paving completed on that, and then they were gonna be doing the restorations.
I know there are questions about the trees being taken down at various different places along the roadway and so on. Hopefully that's going to be, I know people aren't happy about the trees, but that's what happens, that indeed it'll be clear to the town or some development be done to show what actually is happening that will improve the roadway.
Right.
And showing us a necessity for those trees being removed at various different points along the road.
Yeah, and we did make sure that all of those trees were properly posted. So if somebody did have a question, they would have notified us. We held a public informational meeting on that entire project. So they were aware of what was proposed on the site. We did get some concerns about some trees that were planted and there was some construction material near, and we did go out and speak with the contractors. They made sure that they had any materials moved away from it, and they were informed to be careful of any of the subsurface roots, not to affect the trees themselves. So.
Okay.
We are keeping an eye on that one.
We all are.
Is the work on Cedar also including the Alumni Road end, or is that?
What? Thank you. I missed that piece. Alumni Road, we are in the final phase on that one. So we have the draft traffic investigation report. We're just going over the specifics that they are giving as recommendations and requirements of that. And we should be able to get started on that and get the official certificate on file.
Has the neighborhood been enlightened?
I would have to ask Chris that question.
Right, because I mean, last time when they talked about they were, again, I've had a dead end road and I jogged there for
Yeah,
20
and that's
years.
not affecting that area at all. This is simply just
Yeah, it's simply
along
the
the gas
turn in, turn
station
out.
itself with an island for right in, right out only. This
But
doesn't,
are they gonna open the gate?
they're gonna open the gate once the improvements have been done. That's part of the traffic report itself and the stipulation. So
So that will increase the flow of traffic behind those houses.
that flow directly from Willard Ave over and may take a little bit of pressure off of the light itself. But again, that's a right out only. That's not gonna take a left. Yeah, they actually say, where is it? The gate on Alumni Road precluding the through traffic between 175 and 173 and its associated turnaround areas be removed in substantial conformance with the reference plan. So those were what we had indicated onto it. And then as part of their original memorandum, it indicates that it would be allowed once the improvements are in place. Yeah. So, long time coming, very long time coming.
All right.
So, while it's not the plan that we originally had and connecting the two roads and realigning, it is a plan to at least make some improvements.
The safety, hopefully, of that
Yeah.
intersection for sure.
Exactly.
And our students that drive in and out of there for
The state wisdom is they'll get it all completed and nice.
And
then
cut it
months
up.
from Now dig it up.
Yeah, you're right.
All right, next item this evening is, are you all
And then, of
set?
course, it's all on us to pay for. So,
All right, council liaison and committee reports. Counselor Nagel.
Senior Center met this month, including the regular June activities. They're including additional activities for the LGBTQ+. Contact them for details. They're continuing to work with a COVID grant with the Central Connecticut Health District in terms of what to do and not do with that. They are also looking into ARPA funds for building improvements to the senior center. June 22nd is the annual volunteer event. Details about that you've received and senior center you can find out about. Senior center once again has waived the membership fee for this next year, but still, if you wish to renew or you wish to be a new member, you need to fill out a form. So they have updated material about that. They're ongoing to actually getting, if I'm not correct, the window replacement project ongoing physically. Library board met yesterday. Their annual meeting is September 11th at 7 p.m. at the library. They're finishing their bank consolidation, so they will all be in one spot at TD Bank. Summer reading programs are starting in full swing, both the adult and also the teen programs. The teen position, which we refunded, is going to be filled on July 15th. A person to fill that position to be announced. The library board has applied for a state library renovation grant. It also includes other kinds of improvements to state libraries. The intent notice has gone out to that organization, which was due on the 30th. They're working with Sonic, our consulting firm, on grants. The application fee is on September 30th. What's most important probably to us directly is that they will not be able to get to the point of requesting a referendum this fall, so they won't be doing that. Thought you'd like to know that. The summer concerts scheduled for July. The dates have been changed to the 24th and the 31st of July. Contact the library for details about what they are again and the times. That's it.
All right, thank you.
Went over. You went over.
He was doing a good job. He was cooking.
Counselor Donahue.
Just NCTV, Sandy and I have been invited to speak at the ACM conference in
Oh,
New York City. about how we managed to run a all-volunteer station.
Wonderful.
So, we'll see how it goes. The travel arrangements are gross, though. We gotta leave at like 5:30 in the morning from Berlin, and then we don't get back till 11 o'clock at night, so it'll be a good day. But I'm gonna try to be on the meeting, because I said free Wi-Fi on the trip.
All right, well, we understand. That's a big deal to be invited to that.
Congratulations.
Thanks for representing, for sure. All right, next item this evening is public participation. Any member of the public may come forward if you're in the room, or if you're on Zoom, you may participate in the Zoom application.
That island there you talked about, my wife used to ask me about, what are they doing with that thing? On East Robbins and with the Main Street?
Dressed now?
I know, we don't typically, public participation by our rules is supposed to just be, you can give us the question, and then afterward, we can either respond or, yeah, that's fine.
Because I missed that, is it something we sent out to the public, but my wife keeps asking, like I said, what's going on with that? I'll look into it. Thank you, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Online, so remarks by counselors, and I would, if you would like to address that.
I can address that one. So, we'll call that the Robbins Ave Park. The trees that were on that were not considered safe for the area. They will have new trees that will be replaced in that location, similar to what was there before. I believe they're doing a small amount of regrading with it, but based upon the work that was being done, that was going to cause an impact to them as well.
I know there were stones there and so forth.
I think they were doing some storage on that one, but that should all be removed when the project's completed.
Okay. Next item is, well, I'm sorry, we're still in remarks by counselors, but I don't see any hands up. We're good. All right, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Mackey, seconded by Counselor Donahue. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Counselor Camilla absent. We stand adjourned at 10:07 PM. Thank you.